Hi guys, in today's video we're going to talk and make and show you how we do a simple mould. Now this is a great little portrait piece. It's going to be nice and simple, two-part mould, keeping it easy, putting the rubber on and showing you how we make the fiberglass jacket. So let's crack on, let's get on with it. A painting is an illusion, sculpture is a reality. So that's what we key into.
So firstly we start by weighing out the silicone rubber to the desired amount we need for the mould. We use a standard silicone rubber from Notcut, other brands are available. As you can see, we use a spatula getting it from the main tub across to a mixing tub. This piece was actually quite a big piece, so we were aiming for around 550 grams of rubber. Now we're ready for the catalyst, which is at a 10% weight ratio, so we measure that out and then we're ready for mixing. You want to make sure you take your time mixing, making sure that all streaks are removed and it is one even colour. And then from there we're ready to put it into the vacuum tank. With this we're just trying to remove all the air so that when the rubber is applied on the first few coats there's no air bubbles or any impurities. Then you're ready to remove the rubber from the vacuum tank and start with the coating. So as you can see, the rubber is quite literally just poured over the top just to get it on nice and quick. Obviously with the catalyst in there is a time element to this, so you just want to get it on and make sure that you're brushing it in nice and quick, covering the whole piece. The first coat is the most important, so you want to make sure that you're taking extra time on any kind of detail, deep crevices as you can see here, making sure that everything is worked in, working the air out of those pockets as well. Those crevices will hold the air, and if it's not worked in properly you will end up with problem areas. So once you've covered the whole piece, working it in nicely, it's then just a case of waiting for that rubber to set. Then once it's dry you can then apply your second coat, which you just do the same exact process, mixing everything exactly the same. You can add a pigment so there's a different colour, that way it's easier to see where you have and haven't painted. And then just paint it all over again, which will be slightly easier because some of the crevices have been filled, etc. And there you go, there's your second coat on. After the second coat is applied, we're then ready to start walling up. So we use these acetate plastics, as you can see we're cutting to the shape of the side of the mould, and then we stick these together with brown tape to make essentially a wall which goes all the way around, as you can see. Usually on a nice easy piece like this you'll just mark straight around the middle where that wall is going to go, and it is then applied with a rubber so you can stick to the edge, as you can see here. Apply the rubber along that line which you've marked up and stick on the acetates. Some moulds you will find will just stick easily like this, straight to the side. Others you may need to pin, like so, which will hold the acetates while the rubber sets. Then you can go over and smooth it all in on the sides, as you can see here. We do tend to add some small circular plastic nodules, as you can see. They're just for drilling marks, which you'll see later on in the video. Then the piece is fully walled up, ready to go and ready to be coated over the top of that. So then we start again, back to the rubber process, another thin coat to be applied here, mixing up all exactly the same as before. We'll apply a pigment again so there's a different colour, nice and easy then for us to see where we've been. Mix it all in. Pop it in the vacuum tank, and then we'll be ready to lift it out and get it covered for the third thin coat. This time applying it straight over the top of the wall that we've just applied and making the whole piece uniform again. This is the third and final thin coat, so the last of the fiddlier painting on. From here we then move on to the thicker coats where things get much easier and quicker to paint on, with all the crevices being filled and no fiddly areas still left open, with the wall and everything all being covered in uniform. Now we're on to the thick coats, so we start exactly the same, mixing the rubber with the pigment and catalyst. But as you can see here we're now adding a thick coat, which you can see in the background, and you can see this makes the consistency much thicker. Same principle though, just painting on, covering everything nice and evenly, but it will sit a lot heavier, so this gives the rubber the rigidity that you need when you're putting it into the jacket later on. But yeah, just covering all over, much easier now because all the holes are being filled from the previous coats. A nice even coat like that is how it's going to look. Any excess you can see we've filled into the nostrils and the eyes and anywhere deep, but you can just, any rubber that's left over in the tub, just use it up for that. Then this footage now, straight onto the second thick coat, we've just added the pigment there. And then same again for the third coat. So we're just repeating the same processes there. 1, 2, 3 thick coats, applying different pigments. It's nice and easy for us to see where we're applying it. And then that will be all our rubber coats concluded, the 3 thick coats. And then we should have a thick enough consistency for us to be able to move on to the fiberglass part of the mould. So there you can see all of the coats ticked off. So now we start preparation for the fiberglassing. So here you cut your fiberglass into nice sizes. Usually we'll measure up on the piece so we know how many we're going to go. So we maybe need 5 big square ones, 3 for the edges, etc. You count them out. And then we're just using a standard epoxy resin which you can get from most suppliers. You will need a tray like this for your soaking of the fiberglass sheets, and then we're on with the mix. So this here is a calcium carbonate powder that we put in, and that is mixed with the epoxy resin. Again, these are weighed out, so we've got 85% of the resin weight is what we use. So that's the 85% is the powder, and then mix those together. And once you're ready to paint them on, the catalyst is mixed in. Then it's ready to be painted on. As you can see, same again, it's just a case of getting it on nice and quick, nice even coating, ready for the fiberglass. Which is where we start getting ready here. So as you can see, we use a little bean can to keep our resin. This is just so that the resin isn't going off in advance. If it was any bigger, you'd be getting ahead of yourself. So you add the catalyst, mix it in, and then just start applying those to the sheets with a brush. You can do this yourself, but easier if you've got 2 people, so one can keep soaking these as the other peels them away and starts adding them to the piece or onto the mould. So you have 3 different thicknesses of fiberglass. We start with the medium. We usually go around the edge on that. So we've got 1 coat around the edge on the medium fiberglass. Then you've got these, which are your thicks. So obviously just a little bit thicker fiberglass, but we go all over with these. So you have a medium on the edge, thicks covering the whole piece, edges included. We apply them all over. As you can see here, really working them in, getting any kind of air from underneath the piece. You want to get it nice and worked in so that you've got a solid jacket and there's no movement in that jacket. Going all over like this. As you can see, it goes on nicely once you get going and the pieces are soaked. Constantly topping up that resin just to keep those bits soaked on the board as well. As you can see here, pieces coming together nicely, and then that is where we're ready then for the 3rd thickness, which is there, you can see is a tissue. So this is basically just to cap over the top of the previous fiberglass. And this is then for when you're working the mould, you're not getting splinters and nasty sharp edges. This tissue basically just caps it, keeps the mould nice and smooth on finish to touch. And then once that has gone all over, that is your fiberglass part of the mould complete, and it is ready for drying basically. This can take anywhere between half an hour to an hour, and it's ready then for trimming. Keep an eye on your mould, make sure you trim both sides with a blade like this, because otherwise it can be tricky when you do the other side and it'll adhere to that. But once you're trimmed, you're ready to go on the other side. And there you go, that's where it'll be once you've done both sides. Now you're ready for splitting the mould. So as we talked about earlier, that's where you're going to be drilling the mould like this, where we marked those on the wall. You don't have to mark them. We've done previous moulds where we don't mark them. And then you're just going to use wedges and tools. We use little plastering tools like that to basically pry open the mould, sliding gently down, not to damage the rubber. Basically just getting oxygen in between it, and then it starts to crack away and you can just slowly pull it off and you'll reveal the mould underneath. So once you've done that, you're then ready to start splitting the rubber. So you can find your plastic wall with a scalpel blade underneath, and then you can use that wall to make sure you're not doing any damage to the rubber. Just use the blade, run it along that plastic, and then the further you get in, you can start cutting through the rubber into the wax. Do that all the way around, and you're going to have a separate piece of rubber from the other side, which you'll be able to peel off, and then you'll be ready to pop those bits of rubber into the fiberglass jackets. As you can see, you want to pull this off, not just tearing away, because if there are any weak parts on the rubber you might tear it. It's not overly durable stuff, so you want to be careful when you're pulling it off. Also, do minimal damage to anything underneath as well, if you wanted to keep the work for anything in the future. And then as you can see, the rubbers fit nicely into the fiberglass moulds, and that's then ready for it to move on to the next stage, where we're going into the wax room. But that is a simple mould explained.
So guys, that was a nice job done. We hope you enjoyed the video. Please like and subscribe and let us know what you think. We've kept it nice and basic on this mould, so let us know what you think. See you later guys.